Dhiren, I'm an alcoholic.
Dhiren.
So I'm just filled with so much fear now. I've shared before, but never in a meeting like this. And I kept on thinking, like when they asked me to share last week, and it's been playing on my mind, like I need to share something deep and profound. But like I can't think of anything. I've got my story, and I'm going to try and share that. I've been searching my whole life for something, and I didn't know what it was. I felt alone. When I was growing up, I grew up in Port Shepstone. It's about 70 k's down south. I've got my mum and my dad and two elder sisters. And it was a loving family, but I didn't see it that way. I don't remember much of my childhood. The earliest memory I've got is I was about 6 years old, and I heard my mum and my dad screaming in the lounge. And my aunt and my uncle were there, and my granny and my grandfather. And I didn't know what they were fighting. It must have been about 10 or 11 at night. So I sat outside the door, just listening, and I found out, I got the gist of it. My dad was having an affair with my mom's younger sister. That's my earliest memory. I don't remember anything before that. And no one knew. I carried that secret with me for many, many years. It made me angry at the world, made me not want to trust anyone. Because, he was my dad. How could he do that to our family? And it was difficult, and I believe I was born an alcoholic. And I used all of these experiences as an excuse just for me to get what I want and to isolate. I was never a part of my family. Didn't want to be, even though they tried to love me the only way they knew how, which was tough love, but I didn't see it that way. I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. And my behavior, like coming into treatment and experiencing everything this year, I know that I'm the problem, because I didn't need drugs or alcohol to make all those choices and all those bad decisions. It's the same now. I really don't need alcohol to make terrible, terrible decisions. But like my behavior since then, it's been completely off the wall. Remember, I stole my first. Stealing started from a very, very young age. I couldn't make friends. I didn't know how to interact with people. I couldn't make friends in school. So I would go and steal money from my dad's wallet and buy friends. I would buy friendship. It's the only way I knew how. I couldn't relate to people. I knew I was different to everyone else, but I didn't know what was different about me. Now I know that I'm an alcoholic. And it's been, I stole money to buy friends, and I stole my first beer when I was 8 years old. I was with two of my younger cousins, and I remember hating the taste. But I remember loving that feeling and that affirmation that I got from my cousins, because I drank most of it, and I wanted more. That's from 8 years old. That's when I started obsessing. I wanted that feeling. I wanted that affirmation. I wanted to be liked. And growing up, my mom and my dad and my sisters were very, very hardworking, and I wasn't. I didn't want to put in the effort for anything. I would run away from primary school and hide in the bushes because I didn't want to be in class. I thought it was boring. And my mom would have to come to school at least once or twice every week to meet with my principal and figure out what was going on, but I wouldn't talk. I couldn't talk to anyone. I'm drawing blanks here, sorry. And you know, growing up in school, it was so difficult for me to make friends. I mean, I had cousins in the same school, I had my sisters in the same school, but I still felt alone. I carried the loneliness with me for as long as I can remember. And going into high school is when things got worse. I went into high school in standard 5. I didn't want to change schools. I wasn't comfortable with it, but I had to. I was forced to by my folks. And even there, it was a whole new environment. I didn't know anyone, and I had to start the process of buying friends all over again. I was bullied in high school. I was bullied in primary school. And when I got to high school, I was tired of it. I didn't know what to do. So I joined and I bought friends that were a lot older than me, that were the hooligans of the school. And it was fine for a while. Like I found that power and that loyalty in that friendship. But it got me into so much trouble, and I ended up a lot worse than them. I started drinking and smoking almost every week in standard 5. I would run away from home because my folks wouldn't let me out of the house because they could see the behavior. So I would sneak out of the house at about 11 at night and come home at about 3 or 4 in the morning, like completely smashed. That was every weekend. and I hid it well. I hid it very well. My folks didn't know a thing. And you know, I took my cousins with me. I put their lives in danger, but you know, I didn't care. I didn't know that I was selfish. I didn't know that I was selfish. I didn't know that I was irresponsible. Didn't know any of those things. I just wanted. I wanted what I thought was freedom, and I found that freedom in a bottle. But I didn't know that I had a disease, and it was slowly progressing, and I was slowly becoming a slave to it. Because my obsession was just I still remember that feeling. All I could think about was the next weekend when I could sneak out of the house and get drunk all over again. And you know, in school, that's when that affirmation that I got in school, because I was the provider. I would steal money, and I would provide everything for my friends. I was the people pleaser, and I got caught stealing lots of times, but I would always deny it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. That was my solution. My solution was to lie, and I got good at it. I got very good at it. I got away with so many lies until I couldn't get away with it any longer. And I started using, my alcoholism progressed, and I started combining drugs with alcohol when I was in standard 6. And that craving for that affirmation just became so much stronger. I started selling drugs in school because my dad would hide the keys to the safe. He would lock up his wallets everywhere because they couldn't trust me anymore. I would lie, but they knew. I thought I was getting away with those lies, but they knew it couldn't have been anyone else. So I started using then, and it progressed and progressed, and it got. Now that I look back, it got so much worse so quickly. Eventually, when I didn't do well at school, I would run away all the time. But when I got to matric, I thought I had to, I had to pass. I had to sort of accomplish something. So I tried stopping the drugs, but I just substituted it with alcohol. And I just managed to scrape through matric. And I had no goals, I had no ambitions. My dad was very hardworking. He had a very successful business. My sisters both did very, very well in school. My mom was a hardworking housewife, and she did everything for me. And I took advantage of that. But when my dad tried to push me to attend university, and I didn't want to, I became more and more defiant. Because when I finished school, I got the freedom I didn't have to sneak out of the house anymore. I could just go whenever I wanted to. My parents couldn't control me. And they could see my life was unmanageable, but I couldn't. I was in so much of denial. I was in so much of denial that nothing mattered. I didn't see a problem. My dad gave me a job at his accounting firm, and I thought that was, this is what I want to do. I want to take over my dad's business. I want to get all that money. I want to get I want his wealth and the fortune that he worked so hard for. I want all of that, but for nothing. I don't want to work for it. And I started working for him, and I embarrassed him. I almost drove that business into the ground. I would go out during half-an-hour lunch breaks and come back completely pissed, talking to clients, and he lost quite a few clients because of me. And when I turned 21, they didn't know what to do, so they kicked me out of the house, kicked me out of the province. I had to go up to Johannesburg when I was 21. I had nowhere to go, so I found my aunt, and I went and lived with her for a little while. I had no job. I had no money. But I found a way to get my fix. I had no friends there besides my cousin's friends, and they were still in school. So I would go and fetch them. That was one of my duties living in the house, was to go and fetch them from school. And as soon as I fetched them, I was just asking all of their friends how much money they had, because I had the driver's license. I was legal to go and buy all the alcohol, and I would take all their money and just drink it. And I eventually had to look for work because they stopped giving me money. They could see what I was. I was a leech. I was nothing but a leech, just sucking the life out of everyone. So I eventually had to go and look for work, and in the 10 years that I was in Johannesburg, I can't count the number of jobs I've been in and out of. My first job there was at a stationery shop, Walton's, selling pens and pencils. And remember that first I was there for 2 days only. I got 10 Rand a day. I got my 20 Rand, and I said, this is not for me. This shit is not for me. I'm destined for something better. So I took my 20 Rand, I bought 2 loose and a quart, and I was set. And I just sit for the next month without a job. But I didn't care. I didn't care. Nothing bothered me back then. Nothing at all bothered me. So I was in and out of jobs like that. I would either get fired, or I would resign before I got fired. And my disease progressed so badly in the 10 years that I was in Johannesburg. I was so angry at the world, angry at my folks because I thought everyone was just pushing me away, and they were, because they couldn't handle me. They didn't know what to do. So I would bounce around from house to house, like whoever would have me, until I stole something from them. I stole at every house that I went to. My aunt had nothing left in her house. Just like my dad, she had to lock up all her valuables because she couldn't trust me. And I would blame my cousins. And they would cover up for me and say, yes, they needed money for this and money for that, because they also didn't know what to do. And I was the enabler. I was providing for them. I was looking out for them in their eyes. So in and out of jobs, disease progressing, disease I didn't know that I had. And eventually my folks moved up to Johannesburg as well. My entire family moved up. And I went back to live with them. And in the time that I was there, completely broke them again. So when they kicked me out again, I didn't know where to go. So I went to bouncing around again from house to house. And when I found my drug of choice, that consumed me completely. That was all I could think about. I would spend every weekend, and when I say weekend, my weekend would start on a Wednesday night. So I would spend Wednesday through to Sunday in a place called Hillbrow, just doing odd jobs, running around delivering stuff, and just looking for a fix. Just trying to get what I wanted, what I thought I needed, because I needed that fix. I couldn't live without it. I didn't worry about work. I didn't worry about my family. And eventually, I owed the dealers so much of money that I had to leave. I had to go back and ask my folks and tell them, listen, I'm in trouble. I need to pay these people. So, as usual, my dad would sort out all my debts for me. And call me back to live with him, and I had to look for work again. I started working in a call center for F&B. And at this time, I got back together with the only relationship I've ever been in with Nasli, who's now my wife. So she moved up to Johannesburg from Port Shepstone, and we got our own flat. And we were there for about 3 months. I couldn't afford to pay rent. I kept on using every time. I would miss work. All I wanted to do was use. All I wanted to do was drink and use. All I wanted was a party. I just wanted what I saw as a good time back then. I didn't want any responsibilities. And working for F&B, I remember I think it was my first or second salary. I didn't go to work for about a week. So they found me and asked me why I'm not at work. And out of desperation, I said, my dad died, so I'm not at work. And that was a lie I thought I could get away with. And now that I look at it, it's a funny story to me now. But they sent a big bouquet of flowers to my mom and dad's place. And my mom and dad come to our flat with this big bouquet of flowers and wanted to know, listen, what the hell is going on? Why are we getting flowers of condolences from F&B that your dad's dead? But that was desperation, and that's when I admitted to them, because I had no choice, that I've got a drug and alcohol problem. It was when I went to my first treatment center, which was an outpatient program up in Johannesburg. When I went in there, I probably weighed about 50 kilos. Doesn't look like much of a difference now, but it is. I weighed about 50 kilos when I went in there. I was supposed to be there for 6 weeks. And I relapsed while I was in there, so I was there for 8 weeks in total. Didn't learn a thing. I admitted to my folks that I had a problem because I just wanted to get them off my back. I still wanted to use. So when I went into the treatment center, I learned nothing. I didn't speak for the 8 weeks I was there. They didn't talk about the program that saved my life now. None of that was there. We had to sit and draw pictures and have these group discussions about shit that I just didn't understand. I didn't want to understand it. I remember one of the counselors that was there looked at me the first day I was in there. He didn't know me, but he looked at me and he said, "You're going to have to lose everything before you find what you're looking for." And he was right. Like emotionally, I had to lose everything. I had to hit that emotional rock bottom before I actually found what I was looking for. And coming out of treatment, while I was in there, I wasn't married back then, but my wife now fell pregnant, And I thought that was, that's going to be that's my saving grace. She wanted an abortion, and I said no. We have to. Abortion is wrong. That's some sort of moral value or something that I had in me. Like, abortion is wrong. So we got married, and in that time, my son was born. And I just kept on using. I thought he would be the child that saves me, that stops me from causing all the pain and destruction. And that wasn't the case. It got worse and worse. Still wasn't working, because F&B had fired me for some reason. So I couldn't even afford medical aid. I mean, she paid for everything. And when I moved down to Potchefstroom to support her and be there for her, I had to live with her folks, but I wasn't there. I was never around. She went through the pregnancy alone. When my son was born, I went out and I couldn't handle it. Like, I was overwhelmed, and I went out and I got drunk and I got high again, because that's how I deal with things. That was the only way I knew how. That was my solution to everything, to life. Like, I wanted a child for selfish reasons. I thought he was gonna fix me, and he couldn't. I thought marriage was gonna fix me, and it couldn't. And I've had to learn that the hard way. My family just had to learn that the hard way. I mean, what I've done to my son and my wife over the years is shocking. And she kept on moving. Like, I was up and down between Potchefstroom and Johannesburg. I would get in trouble here in Potchefstroom. I would steal money from my in-laws. I would steal money from my wife. I would go and borrow money from whoever I could. And as soon as I got into trouble, and as soon as people found out who I was gone. I would leave them, and I would go back to Johannesburg to my folks. And I would always come up with some lie or some excuse or blame someone else for everything that I've done, and my folks would always take me back in. That was the pattern that I followed for many years. And when my wife would come up and bring my son to Johannesburg, because I would manipulate, I would always tell her, it's going to be different this time, it's going to be better, I'm going to be better. And she would come up, and then I would completely wreck things, and she would move back down. And I blamed her for a long time. I always thought that she was taking my son away from me. But the reality is, I was never there for them. I was never ever there for my wife and my son when they needed me. I couldn't provide for them. I was a horrible husband. I was a horrible father. And that carried on. I remember, because I've been, ever since I was in that first treatment center, I've been in and out of the rooms, looking for some sort of solution, because when I messed things up, I felt that pain. I felt my pain. But it wasn't enough for me to want to change. It was only for that moment that I would go back into the rooms. And as soon as things got better, I was done with it. I was done with recovery, because everything's back to normal, or what I saw was normal. And I didn't need the program. I didn't need a higher power that people were talking about, because I had gotten everything I wanted back. I had my son back for a little time. I had my wife back, and then just like that, that obsession would take over, compulsion, and then I'd pick up and use. And then she would leave again. And I blamed her for that. I remember in 2009, I felt completely alone. And I went to a meeting just so I could hold someone's hand at the end of the meeting, because I missed that human contact. That's all, but as much as I missed it, nothing was ever good enough. And my wife moved back in 2010. We tried to patch things up again, and she fell pregnant again with my daughter. And as soon as I found out she was pregnant, I went back and I used, because I got overwhelmed again. Like, how do I deal with this again? And we went to the gynae, And he did all these scans, and he told us, listen, you're going to have to terminate because there's something wrong with the fetus. There's a whole lot of liquid building up. The heart's not right, so you're going to have to terminate. But let that be your last option. Go and see a specialist first. And I thought, I could see fear and pain in my wife's eyes, and everyone else that found out. And I thought, what, I need to change. I need to be there now for my family. And I tried. I went to meetings. I got myself a sponsor, and I managed to stay clean for a year. But all I could do in that year, I was under house arrest. All I could do is go to work. I'd finally gotten a job then. All I could do was go to work, go home, go to meetings. That was my life. It's not much difference now because it's also what I do now. But we went and saw a specialist, and he said, "Listen, just go through the pregnancy. Your daughter's, they had to keep on draining all this fluid out, so the lungs could develop. We had to go every 2 weeks, and when my daughter was born, she had a hole in her heart. She had to stay in the hospital for a while. Her heart was upside down. Lots of complications. And we had to see the cardiologist very, very often. But, she's growing up fine now. I remember when I was in treatment the first time, I missed what would have been her operation because I was in treatment. My wife had to go up there alone, deal with things alone again. But it was good news, and I still remember that selfishness when I got the news that she didn't need to go through that entire operation. Was that it's like that sense of God. God's doing this for me, and I still remember my sponsor telling me, "He didn't do it for you; He did it for your daughter." But that's how selfish it was. Everything was still about me. That's one of the things I'm grateful for, is that she's growing up fine now. But I got to a year clean, and back then, not because I was working any sort of program, it's because all I could do was go to meetings, go to work, and go home. That was it. I got picked up from home to go to meetings, and I got dropped off back at home afterwards. I remember they asked me to, for the year that I went to meetings, I didn't share at all, I didn't listen. All I could see was differences. I didn't do what that person did, or I don't use that. That's all I could hear. But when I got to that year clean, I had to share. Called me to share at a treatment center up in Johannesburg, and my share was about 6 minutes. And there were only 4 people there, so we sat there for about half an hour, just sitting like this, just not doing anything. And I bullshitted my way through that entire share. I don't even remember what I said. Talking about a recovery that I didn't have, sharing other people's experiences that I heard in the rooms that were not my own, because I thought that's what recovery is about. But as soon as I got to that year clean, I thought that was it. I've got this. I've got a year clean. I can control my drinking and my using. Because that's all that I needed, was just a little bit of time. And I started obsessing again, and then I picked up again after a year. And they say this disease is progressive. Even in that year clean, my disease was progressing and waiting patiently for me to slip up again, and I did. And when I relapsed after that year, it was worse than ever. And it's been a 5-year relapse, getting to that point of complete and total destruction. So I've been, from there, my wife couldn't, because she found out I had relapsed again, and we had separated for a couple of months. She moved back down to Port Shepstone, and it's funny, something drew me like to this town back then. I was working in Johannesburg for a company whose head office is down in Scotland. So I asked for a transfer, and I came down here 5 years ago. And I started. I tried. I tried on my own. I tried to stop on my own, and I would go for a couple of months without using or drinking. And I managed to lie to myself that I'm controlling it. Everything's okay now. Like I can lie to my wife that I'm working. I can go out and use a drink for that night and then go home the next day. That worked for a little while. That lie to myself and to others worked for a little while. And then I stopped being able to control it. Everything completely consumed me. I got tired of working for other people. I always thought I was destined for something greater than who I was back then. I didn't want to work for people, so I tried to start my own company. My dad helped me out again. And I would, as soon as that lasted for about 6 months, I just drank and I used all those profits. My wife was stuck again, picking up all the pieces, looking after our 2 kids, paying for everything. And then I eventually got another job down in Potchefstroom, which I've managed to keep for the last 4 years, but only by deceit and manipulation. It's a really good job. Now I'm happy there, but I wasn't before. I still wanted more. I wanted more than what I was getting. I wanted more from life. And I remember the last 6 months before going to treatment the first time. It was absolute chaos. I couldn't see any light. All I could see was darkness. I was completely and utterly alone. I would drive 450 k's to go and score because dealers wouldn't sell to me anymore in Potchefstroom. I'd lost every single friend that I'd ever known down in Potchefstroom in the last 6 months before going into treatment. My family didn't want to speak to me because they could see that I'd been using again. I thought I was hiding it. Wearing all those masks, saying the right things, but their experiences of me, they know I'm untrustworthy. So I didn't speak to my sisters. Stopped speaking to me for about a year. I couldn't see my nieces or my nephews. I wasn't allowed to see them. My wife kept on going up and down to her mom's place, taking the kids because she didn't. I had to break into my house so many times because they would lock me out. I got home to an empty house so many times, and I kept on thinking, what am I doing? After a 4 or 5 day bender, like that guilt and shame would say, they're like, what am I doing? And I wanted to change. Like as much as I wanted it, I couldn't. I didn't know what to do. And I would drive 450 k's. I would score. I would stay over in the Eastern Cape, and then go back home. My last 6 months that I remember, I was locked in a bathroom. That was my world. My world was a cold, dark, moldy bathroom. That was it. I stopped. I would work. I would carry my laptop into the bathroom and work from the bathroom, or act like I'm working from the bathroom. I would do the bare minimum just for people to think that I'm present at work. That was my life. My life was one tiny little bathroom in the last 6 months. And when I got home after that last 3-day bender before I went into treatment the first time, I got home again to an empty house. My wife packed up the kids. She went to her mom's place. I had to break into my house again. And eventually she, I found her from home and I said, listen, where are you? She says, I'm done with you. It was an ultimatum. You either go into treatment, you find a treatment center, or we are through. So that's why I went to treatment the first time. It was because of an ultimatum. It wasn't because I wanted to go into treatment, because I still thought I could do it on my own. Because that's what I told her so many years. I've been to one treatment center. I've got that year clean 5 years ago. I know what to do. That's what I always told her, and she always gave me the benefit of the doubt, and I always screwed it up. And this time she had enough. My kids had enough. So I phoned my old sponsor from up in Johannesburg who had come through this treatment facility. And he said, listen, there's a number, just phone them, see if they got place, and go up. So I phoned, and I said, listen, I need help. And I went into this treatment center. I went in closed-minded. I went in unwilling. And I'm dishonest by nature, and I carried that through me the whole entire 3 months that I was there. Because while I was in there, I did learn a lot. I still remember doing that step 1 and putting in all those examples. And it brought me to tears, like thinking about everything I've done to my family. But I was still dishonest while I was there, going through the steps. I would only give a little because I didn't want people to know the real me. And those defects that I had, people pleasing, that came out in treatment. For 3 months that I was there, I didn't get concerned once because I would manipulate, I would people please, I would do whatever it took to not get concerned and for people to not find out who I really was. I would wear masks just like I did in school in every situation. What I've learned is I can only get help when I'm completely honest with the people that are trying to help me, with the people that are willing to help me. And I worked through the steps, and I remember step 4 and 5. It was difficult, but I still held on to secrets. I didn't want people or my sponsor to know the real me, because if I give away everything, then what's left? There's nothing but an empty shell. So, that's exactly what I needed to be, because I needed to start building myself up, and working through the steps this time has helped me. The most difficult step for me was step 2. I grew up in a very, very religious household. I had religion forced on me. And when I got to step 2, coming to believe in that a higher power could restore me to sanity, I couldn't see any higher power. I didn't want to. My thought of a higher power was just God sitting somewhere, just judging me because I saw God the way I saw myself. Like through the eyes of an addict, like just vengeful, vindictive, manipulative, just waiting to cut me down. Waiting to cut me down at any moment. I didn't want to believe in a higher power. I couldn't believe in a higher power because then I'm not in control. And back then it was, like, even working through the steps, there was still so much of denial, because I was dishonest with it. Dishonest by omission. And coming to believe in a higher power has been a slow and gradual process for me. I watched all those videos on AA and Paul Wilson, and my roommate was a Catholic priest there for 3 months, and I remember watching the Paul Wilson story and the light shining on him, and I thought that's what it needs to be. but I've learned the hard way that it's a slow. For me, it's been a slow and gradual process. It's coming to believe. So after 3 months in treatment, I left and I thought I had all the tools to get me through, and I did. I had the program, but I was still dishonest in treatment. I wasn't open. I wasn't honest, and I still wasn't willing to believe. I still had doubts in the program, and I relapsed. And that's when, as much as I learned in treatment, that relapse was the thing that saved my life, because I had to look back at every experience and know that I should have been dead. I should have been dead a long time ago with the lifestyle that I lived and the high that I chased. But that relapse saved my life, because the few people that I had left in my life pushed me away completely. When I went home after that relapse, my kids were standing there at the window waiting for me to come home, and they had a whole lot of stuff in their hand that they just started throwing at me. The last thing my son told me before I went back into treatment was that he hates me for everything that I did to him, to his sister, and to his mother, and he never wants to see me again. That was from an 8-year-old. And my wife wanted nothing to do with me. I mean, she was so angry again. So I went back into treatment. I had nowhere to go. I didn't know whether I had a job. And everything had to change then. I still had trouble admitting that I was powerless. And I still remember I was walking around there full of self-pity for about 3 weeks, just trying to work out in my head, what I can do to fix it. And my sponsor told, there's always a moment in recovery when I'm trying to work it where the penny drops. And for me, it was on that veranda where the councillors smoke. I was walking past, just working out in my head how I'm going to fix things. And my sponsor looked at me and he says, I can see you still working out in your head that you're trying to fix things and you can't. And like that's when it dropped me. Like I can't fix anything, because my experience has been that the only thing I know, because I depend on self-reliance, is that I screw things up. And I blame myself for my daughter and her heart condition. And a good friend of mine told me, listen, you're not God. It's not your fault. But these are all the moments that made coming to believe for me like a lot easier. It's been a process. I can't lie and say that it's been easy, because back then what I saw, or the suggestions I saw was, I saw everything as sacrifices, but it wasn't. Everything that I had to do was for me to get to this point. Sitting here sharing my experience, strength and hope, coming from a place where I thought I was completely and utterly hopeless. There's that line in the big book. I can't remember it word for word, but it talks about the devil, and he certainly had me, and that's how I felt. Like if there was a heaven and a hell, if there is a heaven and a hell for me was that active addiction. And heaven is me sitting here in front of so many friends, sharing my experience, strength and hope, because this year has been incredible. It's been an incredible year. I don't depend on my family anymore, to get me out of trouble. I'm slowly becoming self-supporting. I can look after my family. Work's been going so incredibly well. I do my job. I got promoted while I was in treatment the first time, which is, I don't know how that happened. I didn't deserve it, because I lied and manipulated my way into that. I would use it work just so I could get the job done. And now I'm putting in the effort to actually earn that promotion that I got before I found recovery. My wife and I have such a good relationship now. My sisters, I'm allowed to see my niece and my nephew. I mean, they invite me over to their house when they come down from Johannesburg. It really is an incredible year. I managed to buy my first car. Becoming self-supporting and getting some sort of self-worth makes this journey just so worthwhile for me, because it's things that I couldn't do before. Sitting here with a few just for today's behind me really is incredible. I mean, a year ago I wouldn't have imagined sitting here, clean, sober, and enjoying life, looking forward to life. Because I remember when I relapsed and I was in that self-pity, hope was the only thing getting me out of bed. Like, I hope today is going to be better than yesterday. I hope I find some sort of solution today. I hope I get where I need to be. And slowly through this process, that hope has changed into gratitude. Like, gratitude is the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. And when I get down on my knees and I pray in the mornings, I pray that people find what I found, because what I've been searching for is freedom. It's freedom from a disease that I believe I was born with, and working through this program, I've found that with the help of so many others. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for letting me share.